Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja, and for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in London, Ollie Barrett. Ollie, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Tanvi. It's 12:30 p.m. here in London, 1:30 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next half hour, BIMSTEC Foreign Ministers meet. Starmer and Biden hold talks in Washington, and UK GDP beats expectations. First, the headlines.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar hosts the second BIMSTEC Foreign Ministers Retreat in New Delhi aimed at bolstering cooperation among the Bay of Bengal nations. UK's new Prime Minister Keir Starmer and US President Joe Biden push for an immediate Gaza ceasefire deal to get hostages out as Gaza truce talks are underway in Doha, Qatar. And NATO Chief Jens Stoltenberg says China enabling Russia to build weapons to attack Ukraine. Beijing calls the statement biased, while Kremlin says that NATO's military infrastructure is creeping closer to its borders. Up first, news from New Delhi. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and his counterparts from the BIMSTEC member countries are at a two-day retreat in India's national capital. The Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, BIMSTEC, brings together 7 countries of South and Southeast Asia for multifaceted cooperation. BIMSTEC has India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Myanmar and Thailand as members. As the summit began on Thursday in India's capital, New Delhi, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said that the discussions will revolve around connectivity, institutional building, cooperation in trade and business, as well as on the merits of new mechanisms. He also emphasized that for India, BIMSTEC represents the intersection of neighborhood first outlook, Act East policy and the Sagar vision.
There are long-standing goals such as capacity building and economic cooperation that have acquired a new urgency. BIMSTEC represents the intersection of the neighborhood first outlook, the Act East policy and the Sagar vision. Our discussions in the first part will revolve around connectivity, institutional building, cooperation in trade and business, collaboration in health and space, digital public infrastructure, capacity building and societal exchanges, as well as weighing on the merits of new mechanisms.
DD India's Amritpal Singh now joins us on the story from Delhi. Hi Amrit. Amrit, first of all, tell us about this grouping BIMSTEC and why its profile is rising by the day.
Well, BIMSTEC is a grouping of these 7 nations which are situated at a geostrategically very important location, given that the important trade and sea lanes pass through this region. It is in interest of all these 7 nations to collaborate. They have many similarities. All of them are developing nations. So it has a development angle to it. It has institutional network building angle to it. It has the security angle to it. It has cooperation amongst themselves for trade and rising their profile. Of course, there are individual interests. If connectivity happens, that boosts travel, tourism. Many of these countries who are part of it, their economies in a significant way are dependent upon tourism. So connectivity does help them. So these are the interests that bring them together. As far as India goes, as the External Affairs Minister himself said, that as for India, it is BIMSTEC represents the intersection of its neighborhood first policy, of its Act East policy, and also the Sagar vision that it has for blue ocean development. So I think these are the interests which bring this grouping together, which has been in existence for about 27 years, of course in different forms. Different countries joined at different different stages, but now that the BIMSTEC Charter has come into existence, was adopted at the Colombo conference and came into effect on the 20th of last month, 20th of May. So they it gives an institutional framework to open up and include more observers, like-minded countries, build in mechanisms for cooperation with other groupings like or even informal groupings like the Quad, of which only India amongst the BIMSTEC countries is a member. So that is why the relevance of this grouping.
Okay, so it's the second Foreign Ministers Retreat, Amrit. What has transpired today and what are we expecting tomorrow?
As the EM in his opening remarks said, that essentially the foreign ministers were talking about connectivity, about cooperation in health in space, in digital public infrastructure, capacity building, people-to-people exchanges. So this is what is being discussed. Of course, there's a trilateral scheduled in the evening between India, Myanmar and Thailand, which will be important given the political unrest in Myanmar and the resultant security situation for neighboring countries, including India. So that will be another interesting meeting today, scheduled for today. Tomorrow there will be discussions on how to boost and build an institutional framework for increasing connectivity both through waterways, land and the sea route, and also finalizing or sort of firming up the agenda for the upcoming BIMSTEC Summit in Thailand, scheduled for September this year.
Okay, thank you, Amrit. Amritpal Singh reporting from New Delhi. Now, in preparation for India's Union Budget 2024, Prime Minister Narendra Modi convened a meeting with economists and sectoral experts in New Delhi on Thursday. The meeting saw participation of Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. It was a key step as the government gears up to present its comprehensive budget for its third term on July 23rd. The pre-budget meeting was attended by notable figures, including Niti Aayog Vice Chairman Suman Berry and other members of their planning body. The gathering was marked by in-depth discussions aimed at shaping the economic direction of the country for the coming fiscal. This budget holds particular significance as it is said to be the first major economic document under Modi 3.0 administration. And the lower house or Lok Sabha Speaker of Indian Parliament Om Birla led the Indian parliamentary delegation in the 10th BRICS Parliamentary Forum meeting in Russia on Thursday. Addressing the plenary session on the BRICS parliamentary dimension, prospects for strengthening inter-parliamentary cooperation, he emphasized the role of parliaments in fostering transparency and accountability and urged for collaboration among legislatures worldwide. And next, on to the crucial NATO summit underway in the United States. NATO's 75th anniversary gathering in Washington has swept the newly elected UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer straight into top-level diplomacy. Starmer met US President Joe Biden on the sidelines of the summit on Wednesday. My colleague Ollie Barrett is in London. He takes it forward from me here, gives us more on this meeting and other stories making headlines around the world. So, Ollie, first face-to-face meeting with Biden of Starmer.
That's right, Tanvi. Britain's newly elected Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying that the special relationship between Britain and the US is, in his view, stronger than ever. He met with US President Joe Biden at the White House on the sidelines of the NATO summit being hosted in Washington, D.C. on the 75th anniversary of the alliance. The two leaders held a discussion on the possibility of a ceasefire in Gaza, which would include the release of hostages and humanitarian aid to Gaza. NATO Military Alliance's 32 members have pledged unwavering support for Ukraine's conflict effort. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg saying that Russia remains the most significant and direct threat, he claims, to security. He says the allies have collectively identified China as a decisive enabler of Russia's war, calling it an important message.
In the way that this is a strong message from NATO allies that we really want Ukraine to join and that we are working with Ukraine to make that happen. Words are important, and words creates expectation, creates an agenda, defines an ambition. But of course, as important as words, the language in the declaration is actually what we then have agreed to do. So in many ways, action speaks at least as loudly as words. So I think you need to understand the declaration with a reference to irreversible path to membership together with what we do. China provides dual-use equipment, microelectronics, a lot of other tools which are enabling Russia to build the missiles, to build the bombs, to build the aircraft, to build the weapons they are using to attack Ukraine.
Now, the Kremlin says it's watching as NATO's military infrastructure moves closer towards Russia's borders and says Moscow would need to act to contain the Western military alliance. Russian news agency has cited Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov as saying that NATO's goal is to suppress Russia and that the alliance's actions represent a serious threat to Russian national security. The US and Germany say in a joint statement that Washington will start deploying long-range fire capabilities in Germany in 2026 in an effort to demonstrate its commitment to NATO and European defence. China is criticising draft communiques from the NATO summit in Washington that it describes as a decisive enabler of Russia's war effort in Ukraine, saying that the communiques are biased and full of provocations. Speaking to reporters at a press briefing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jin said that NATO hyped up China's responsibility in regards to the Ukraine crisis. Lin also accuses the draft of playing up the tensions in the Asia-Pacific region, full of Cold War mentality and belligerent rhetoric. Beijing has put forward a 12-point paper more than a year ago that set out general principles for ending the conflict in Ukraine, but didn't go into specifics. Gaza ceasefire talks continue in Doha, with Egyptian, US and Israeli officials in attendance. Hamas is warning that a fresh Israeli assault in Gaza could jeopardise the negotiations. DD India's William Denslow reports from Baghdad.
Heading into these talks in Doha, there was an increased sense of optimism, largely after Hamas officials in recent days stated that they'd be willing to drop a previous key demand for them, that Israel accept a permanent ceasefire as part of these talks. We've also heard recently from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to a US envoy, saying that Israel would be committed to securing a ceasefire if its red lines were accepted. Those include ensuring that no Hamas fighters in the south of the Gaza Strip make their way further north, also to do more to clamp down, as they see it, of the arms transfer through the Egyptian border crossing into the Palestinian enclave. Another key issue for Israel heading into these talks, Benjamin Netanyahu saying that Israel wants the ability to resume fighting in order to meet its goals set out. However, there is a sense of concern as well, especially after Israel began its fresh assault around Gaza City, with Hamas saying that renewed fighting in that area risked totally derailing these ceasefire negotiations and risked taking them back all the way to square one. Mass attack on Israel on October 7th. Since then, an estimated 38,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. The international community says a ceasefire is imperative, and aid agencies warn that the humanitarian situation in the Palestinian enclave continues to deteriorate. William Denslow in Baghdad reporting for DD India.
While civilians continue to flee Gaza City, even as the Israeli military says its troops have completed a 2-week operation in the Shijaya district there and have withdrawn from the area. Israel says it destroyed 8 tunnels that contained weapons and communications equipment and encountered a terrorist cell, leading to close combat. Next to Ukraine, and Ukrainian authorities have seized a foreign cargo ship near Odessa and detained its captain on charges of aiding Russia in exporting stolen Ukrainian grain from Crimea. The crew is accused of transporting several metric tons of grain to the Middle East on behalf of Russia. There's been a drone attack as well, a Ukrainian drone attack in the village of Rzewka in Russia's Belgorod region, which has killed 1, leaving 3 injured, according to the governor there. Belgorod is the Russian region that's come under the most frequent cross-border fire from Ukraine during the course of the war. Ukraine's Air Force says Russia launched 2 Iskander-M ballistic missiles and 6 Shahed drones in an attack on Ukraine in the early hours of Thursday local time, injuring 1 person. All 6 drones launched by Russia were shot down, with no casualties reported. Now, in France, with a call for a coalition after elections there, left-winger Mathilde Panot says the president should stop monopolising power in Parliament. This after Emmanuel Macron said in an open letter published in regional newspapers that mainstream parties with Republican values should form a governing coalition, and said he hoped to pick a prime minister from such a grouping. Macron's centrist camp came second and the RN third, after third-placed candidates from the left and centre withdrew from the runoff to avoid splitting the anti-RN vote. That sunk the far-right's hopes of winning a majority and forming a government after the weekend's second round of voting in snap elections. Macron's Justice Minister, Éric Dupond-Moretti, has defended the president's move, saying the only way out of the gridlock is for lawmakers from all sides except the far right and the far left to work together.
This is the unbelievable situation in which we found ourselves in. It's a form of legislative takeover that the president is currently doing. So he should stop monopolizing power, admit that he was defeated, and admit that we won.
Here in the UK, the economy grew by 0.4% in May, exceeding expectations and providing a boost to the new government of Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The growth was driven by services, but also manufacturing and construction. It could delay an interest rate cut by the Bank of England in August. However, Britain's long-term growth prospects remain modest, with output only 2.7% above pre-pandemic levels. The country's trade deficit has narrowed. Exports to the EU, from the UK hit their lowest since January 2022. Tanvi, over to you.
Thank you, Ollie. Ollie Barrett joining us from London. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. American actor Alec Baldwin cast as a flouter of rules at his New Mexico trial in the shooting of a cinematographer case. And China's Customs Department arrests a man for smuggling over 100 live snakes inside his trousers. Details on the other side.
On Defence Dynamics this week, we will tell you all about the Made in India light tank Zorawar. The India's light tank Zorawar is a symbol of strength and resilience, an ultimate weapon available for use in combat. It has unmatched capabilities with outstanding design and cutting-edge technology. This makes Zorawar a game changer in high-altitude warfare, thus ensuring victory under extreme conditions. Find out more about Zorawar only on DD India at 8:30 p.m. IST.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Back to Asia. A Japanese warship made a rare entry into China's territorial waters near Taiwan earlier this month without notifying China and sparking serious concerns from Beijing. Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force warship sailed into China's waters off Zhejiang province on 4th of July, where China had announced that it would conduct naval drills, Japan's Kyodo news agency said, citing diplomatic sources. China's Coast Guard and naval vessels have entered Japan's territorial waters, including June last year, when Tokyo lodged a protest against Beijing after the Chinese Navy sailed into Japanese waters near Yakushima Island. In December, the Chinese military said that a US Navy ship illegally entered waters adjacent to a disputed South China Sea that has recently seen several maritime confrontations with neighbors, including the Philippines. Now, still photographs released by Japan's defense ministry showed what it said was a Chinese aircraft carrier at sea off Japan's southwestern Okinawa region. Japan's defense ministry said that the aircraft carrier was located 500 kilometers south of Miyako Island in Okinawa. It said 2 Japanese Navy ships were observing its movements while Japanese fighter jets scrambled in response to the aircraft launched by the carrier. And next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. US actor Alec Baldwin's trial opened in the state of New Mexico on Wednesday, with the prosecution and defense painting starkly different pictures of the events leading up to the death of a cinematographer named H. Hutchins. During a rehearsal in 2021, Baldwin was pointing a gun at Hutchins when he fired a live bullet, killing her and wounding the director. According to Chinese custom officials, a man was caught smuggling 104 live snakes in the pockets of his pants. Officials said that 5 different species of snakes were identified, of which 3 were alien to China, and that they were pursuing legal action against the man for violating animal import and biosafety laws. And if you find it difficult to choose cosmetic products, well, AI robots in South Korea can help you. South Korean cosmetics giant Amore Pacific has developed a robotic arms-based AI-powered makeup manufacturing system that can now help you find cosmetics tailored to your needs. Reservations are fully booked by customers who want skin and lip products customized for them by latest technology. And as India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrapped up his successful 2-nation visit to Russia and Austria, he witnessed an amazing rendition of Vande Mataram, an Indian national song, by the Austrian artists in Vienna. Indian origin conductor and composer Vijay Upadhyay was the man behind the Western classical rendition of Vande Mataram. In an exclusive interview to DD India, Upadhyay said that India and Austria have the potential to create a fusion of ideas.
When Prime Minister Narendra Modi landed in Austria, he got a very unique, different reception, a musical, melodious reception, which was presented by the Vienna University Philharmonic, a rendition of Vande Bharat. And we have the composer with us now, or the conductor rather of this now. We have Vijay Upadhyay, who's also himself of Indian origin and has been director there for more than 20 years. Thank you for speaking to DD India. What can you tell us about how this entire idea of surprising the Prime Minister came about through this sort of a composition and this sort of an arrangement of 50 students of yours?
Well, first of all, as we got to know at a short notice that the Prime Minister is coming, and so we tried to create something which is a very well-known Indian piece and which can also have a layer of European color to it. So Prime Minister has come after 41 years, a Prime Minister of India to Austria. It's a small country, and how can we make an effort to give him a warm welcome here?
And it went viral completely around the world, and a lot of other people like Ricky Kedge also praised it very, very profusely. But what did the Prime Minister have to say? Because I believe he applauded after, listening to the entire rendition, and then had an interaction with you and your students as well, who sang and played for him.
Yes, I was actually a little apprehensive in the beginning if he would like it, or I was thinking, this poor guy is coming tired from Russia. How will it be? But then he was very interested and and he said it was very good. And he also asked me about the students, if they are full-time, part-time students. And they also asked me, naturally the most important thing that it interested him was that where am I from? And so when I said I'm from Lucknow, he said that he's also from UP.
That is how this sort of a music to the ears situation is created, where India and Austria can progress on multiple fronts. A fusion of many ideas and initiatives can take place, and a lot of progress can be made. Just an example of that is in the field of music and culture. Thank you so much for speaking to us, and that's it for now. With camera person Rakesh Kumar, Gautam Roy in Vienna, Austria for DD India.
So that's all for this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter and Instagram at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can catch all the latest news and updates from India and the world on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Tanvi Taneja from my entire team here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.